celebrity dies, a royal is born, a war is declared. The mainstream media reports these things solemnly, courting respectability and the trust of authorities. Only a small number of publications can be trusted to pop the bubble with juvenalian contempt. In the UK, the standard bearer is Private Eye. In France, the role is taken up by Le Canard Enchaîné. And in the United States, the job falls to The Onion. These publications are thriving amid a general crisis for all established media, particularly print media. Why? Because, as we'll see, satirical publications have a license to tell the truth, and often use it. Le Canard Enchaîné literally means the chained duck. It derives its name from the old radical newspaper L'Homme Enchaîné, the man in chains. Canard, though, is ambiguous. It can mean duck, but it also slang for paper, and of course a term for prurient gossip. Le Canard is a chained duck, a bound paper, or a suppressed rumour. Founded in 1915 as France is at war, Le Canard aimed to publish stories that the authorities didn't want aired. It was disrespectful of all authority, parliament, church, the courts, business, the military. Indeed, there was initially a radical impulse behind Le Canard, with many socialists and communists involved. Today it has no political affiliation other than a commitment to French republicanism and secularism. Today, under long-standing executive editor Claude Angeli, it is one of France's most successful publications. In 2010, when Nicolas Sarkozy was still in office and the target of much of the paper's scorn, it reportedly had 69,000 subscribers, printed 700,000 copies a week, and raked in 4.9 million euros in profit. It typically blends high-quality investigative journalism with malicious cartoons and parody columns, such as Le Journal de Carla B, supposedly written by the wife of Sarkozy during his presidency. Over the years, it has sometimes been targeted by the authorities. In 1972, the paper exposed the Prime Minister for tax evasion. The following year, the Directorate of Territorial Surveillance, France's domestic intelligence agency, was found to have sent agents into Le Canard's office disguised as plumbers in order to plant a bug. The plot was rumbled. Le Canard had built up a network of very reliable informants, and it printed the names of the spies involved. A government minister was forced to resign. In a polity rife with corruption and official brutality, and where the mainstream press stays too close to elected governments, Le Canard cheerfully undermines them. Often, its stories are decidedly inconvenient to core interests of the French state. During the Arab Spring, for example, it disclosed how the foreign minister was close to the Ben Ali regime in Tunisia and had been offering material support to the dictatorship to suppress the uprising. The minister had to resign. One case where the paper's anti-clericalism conflicted with its commitment to free speech was during the so-called Danish cartoons controversy, in which a right-wing Danish newspaper commissioned a series of cartoons representing Islam in a derogatory way. One of Le Canard's cartoonists responded with his own satirical sketch. In the image, a newspaper editor said to a cartoonist, "Your cartoon of Muhammad who is doing this thing with a camel. I don't know." The cartoonist retorts, "Censor, coward, traitor." This suggested that cries of censorship were being used to justify the perpetuation of vulgar, racist stereotypes. Le Canard censored it. The paper's success comes in spite of its reluctance to adapt to the digital age. It continues to insist that its primary medium is paper and ink, not its mostly empty website. With other newspapers like Le Monde or Le Figaro seeing their circulation plummet, Le Canard's success proves that technology is only one of the reasons why people are abandoning the old media. Le Canard's biggest advantage is its business model. It does not have a corporate ownership structure, being privately owned by directors and employees. It also runs no ads, generating all revenue from sales. It is free, in a way that the mass media are not, to tell the truth. And that is why readers are abandoning the big daily press and flocking to a satirical weekly. Private Eye, the Eye as is known to his readers, was launched by the humorist Peter Cook in 1961 as part of the satire boom. The pioneers of this new satire were not radicals. Often they were home counties Tories or consensual liberals. Yet, out of their hatred of pretension and their sense of absurdity, they dealt decisive blows against the culture of deference. They mainstreamed irony. And this is what Private Eye is about. In many ways, the magazine is conservative in its values. It used to be preoccupied with mocking homosexuals and would print racist material such as the cover responding to Emperor Hirohito's visit to the UK by announcing a nasty nip in the air and suggesting piss off bandinis. Some of its jokes continue to be quite sexist, the Glenda Slide character, for example. Other jokes are just old hat. Dave Spart, a parody of various marginal socialist trots and anarchists, is surely due an update. Yet it has at times taken the lead in covering stories few others would dare touch. For example, its investigation into Lockerbie exposed the fraudulent case against the 2 Libyans locked up for it. Likewise, it began investigating the story of Cyril Smith's child abuse, lately in the news, as long ago as 1979. In a word, Private Eye is not satirical because it is radical, but it is sometimes radical because it is satirical. In fact, the Eye is arguably most notable not for its satirical routines or comic characters. Some of these, such as The Secret Diary of John Major, modelled on the Adrian Mole books, entered popular lore. Moreover, its willingness to prick the delicate skin of propriety, such as during the mass outbreak of mourning following the death of Princess Diana, has earned it loyal subscribers. Yet many of its routines are by now rather exhausted, the basic form having been perpetuated for decades. It's actually the Eye's journalism which has made it essential reading. Unrestrained by any billionaire proprietor and not dependent on advertising, it has regular columns covering the nitty-gritty of corrupt and sleazy local councils, ongoing fiascos at Westminster, and the pretensions and lies of journalists. Arguably, though, the magazine's finest hours derive from the work of the legendary journalist Paul Foote, whose Back Pages column was responsible for the Lockerbie revelations, as well as the many stories about city corruption and miscarriages of justice that the publication broke. Private Eye is funny when it is funny, because it's deadly serious. And the formula still works. In February, it was disclosed that it was still the top news magazine in the UK, with a fortnightly print circulation of 224,000, well ahead of more sober publications such as The Economist, The Spectator, or The New Statesman. The Onion has no investigative content. Every word is fiction. It parodies and subverts the tone of mainstream newspapers and gives burlesque treatment to serious matter. There is a strict adherence to the form of journalism, and close attention is paid to the verbal tics, tone, and punctuation common in the newspapers. Some of its funniest matter skewers everyday pretentiousness or stupidity. A recent headline declaimed, "Open-minded man grimly realizes how much of life he's wasted listening to bullshit." This is typical of the wry scatological sarcasm of The Onion. The Onion was launched by impoverished students at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 1988, and from these lowly origins it has developed into a major national institution. Whereas The Eye and Le Canard are keeping it real with a focus on print, The Onion has diversified since 2007 into providing a range of online content, and last year abandoned print for good. Its YouTube channel cleverly satirizes the format of American news, in effect calling into question its supposed objectivity. In recent years, it has become far darker, more politicized, and more clearly subversive, to the extent that the New Republic lauded it as America's #1 Marxist news source earlier this year. And indeed, The Onion can be ferocious. For example, consider the story about the policing of America's class system headlined, "Congress passes bill to add armed patrol to US poverty line." This legislation will ensure that we have the security forces and equipment we need to deter anyone living below this boundary from crossing into the middle class. Other headlines ironize about American pieties. At the height of the recession, one story announced, "Laid-off man finally achieves perfect work-life balance." It also runs a satirical pop culture site called AV Club and a parody viral content site called Clickhole, whose recent stories include one headlined, "Heartwarming. This cop cares so much for the people in his town that he doesn't kill them. These people have given me so much," the cop says. "Not murdering them is my way of saying thank you." Some of its stories are so convincingly reported that they are mistaken for real news, as when China's People's Daily covered its report, Kim Jong-un named Onion's Sexiest Man Alive for 2012. The Onion will never break a news story, but its fictitious universe allows it to tell harsh truths that would never make the New York Times. Even more so than The Eye and Le Canard, The Onion is enjoying extraordinary success at the moment. During its period as a print publication, it had a circulation of 400,000. Its website reaches 7.5 million unique visitors each month. But of course, The Onion is driven by profit, and most of that profit comes from channeling the zeitgeist of the internet. As such, its radicalism is precarious and market-led. Yet, even if the American mood shifts and The Onion turns to lighter, more politically innocuous fare, given the competition, it could still be true to its slogan, America's finest news source.